I started thinking about who I wanted to become really, really early. So by the time I was a teenager, I was already thinking about success, stability, career, and all of the things. And I didn't question it because that felt very, very normal to me. I already had been living a certain way before I could even understand what any of this meant. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video, especially if you're someone who can relate, and talk about what it looked like for me to actually start being driven, responsible, ambitious so early on, and the blind spots that I did not see into much, much, much later after I had already burnt out in my corporate career. Yes, just thinking about this, it's a lot. And I talk about it a lot in my book, Release and Renew. And don't mind my retractable banner here in the background. I have a call later where I've been asked to share about my book. And this is why I'm having this conversation today, because it's just top of mind, where I've been asked to share about my book and the other things that I'm offering. So I just have got my retractable banner set up so I can be ready for that call. I design those types of things for other business owners. So if you or anyone you know is a small business owner and need a retractable banner, email me. But talking about starting to be driven and ambitious and responsible so early on. So my family is still very, they value education. They value doing something with your life. They value progression. And just to give a little bit of context, my grandmother graduated from college, her and her sister, her older sister, in the early 50s as Black women. So that puts some context to it around achievement, progression, ambition, being driven, responsible, capable, all of the things. So just seeing that from my grandmother, she became an educator. She really valued education and put education as a value on me and my cousins. That's what that represented. So I had that example, that preview from the time I was a small child. And I absorbed all of that without necessarily being told that I had to do one specific thing or be one specific way. But I had the visual examples, right in front of me. And being the eldest daughter of my parents and the oldest grandchild, but the oldest girl grandchild, I'll put it like that, it made me start thinking about things early, like my career, success, making smart decisions, making the right decisions. I'm thinking about these things in kindergarten, in first grade. Like my mind takes me back to 7 years old. And I think almost 8. And I think that's a memory in my mind because that's when my middle brother was born. I was almost 8 years old. And just starting so early and having these thoughts around success and making the right decision and making the smart decision, it put me on a trajectory for success, all right, but also to crash out, because while I was shown the right way to be or the right way to move, I wasn't shown how to sustain that. And for me, that I always getting straight A's, always being, all of the awards that you get in academic achievement, like my parents were always coming to an assembly at school or something for some type of academic award for me. And again, like I have to talk about the book later. So again, it's like this was the perfect time to have a conversation like this. I received a college scholarship, 4-year college scholarship in the 8th grade. So just think about that. Just think about that. My grandmother and my parents, like they started me thinking about those kind of things and applying for scholarships and applying for things like that very early on. And I secured a college scholarship in the 8th grade. The only stipulations were, of course, as I moved into high school, keeping a certain GPA in order, 9th through 12th grade in order to keep the scholarship, which of course I did. But that's the way I was moving. And again, I did not question this because I was just doing what made sense to me, what was modeled to me. And of course, like it could have always been, it could have been the opposite. I could have had negative things modeled to me and turned out that way. But I'm just having this conversation because I think many women, especially Black women, are raised to, do the right thing, make the smart decisions. And it's in our families, they're not doing anything wrong. They're trying to protect us. But on the other hand, not showing or not teaching how to sustain that and how to show up in life without performing. I think those are some of the parts that were missed. And like I said, I know I'm not the only one who grew up like that because I've heard other women talk about it before. Of course, I'm a Black woman, but even some white women have shared with me how they had a lot of pressure on them when they were young girls and how that manifested in them as young women. And just, that thinking ahead, that doing it right, that just moving through life and really not questioning anything. And again, all of that worked. It worked. It worked for me. I got into a certain career. I moved up the ladder, got into a certain job, was doing well, making a great salary, bonuses, all of the things. All of that worked until it didn't. But what I had to realize was that way of living requires you to constantly be in go, go, go mode, always on mode, always doing, always clocked in. Like that's what it requires. It doesn't give you space to kind of live in your humanness. It just, all you're doing is doing. It doesn't give you the space to just fully be in your humanness. And I think that that's something to really consider. And again, I didn't come to any of these realizations until, I burnt out in my corporate leadership career. And my body mainly forced me to make the decision, but my mind quickly followed behind it, and my heart as well. I just knew that I could not go on living like that. And, I've talked about, my sabbatical and the things that I did and how I'm living my life now and redesigning my life now in a way that's sustainable, in a way that is easeful, in a way that is peaceful, calm, in a way where I'm prioritizing my health and my wellness. But when you are raised from such a young age to be this way, think this way, always be thinking, doing, trying to progress, perform, it requires a lot to unlearn and untangle yourself from those behaviors. Again, for me, it was my burnout that pushed me to yeah, I don't want to live like I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to work like this anymore, while still having goals, ambition, vision, like still having all those things, but doing them in a way now that is more sustainable, that allows me to be in my humanness. And I think that's something that we need to think about more. It doesn't choosing a life where you prioritize your health, your wellness, your rest doesn't mean giving up your goals, your dreams, your ambition. It does not mean that at all. And I'm a living example that it doesn't mean that. It's just figuring out ways where you can prioritize your health, prioritize your wellness, prioritize rest while still being able to move through your goals, your visions, your dreams. And again, I'm doing that. And that's why I'm having these conversations so other people can see, other women can see that it is possible. And again, I'm not raising children. So this is really for the women who their children are grown and out of the house and you're in a season where you can focus on yourself, or you don't have children like me and you've been just going, doing, succeeding, whatever. And you're just at a place where like, this is not sustainable and I don't want to live like this anymore. It is possible. You don't have to give up your vision to prioritize your health and wellness. They can both exist at the same time. So if you've always been someone who can just, handle things, figure it out, keep going, listen, that was me too, girl. You might not have realized where that even started for you. Again, for me, I consciously remember, of course, it was shown to me prior to 7 years old, but in my mind, I remember from 7 years old being this little girl that was smart, figuring it out, thinking about what success would look like for me, thinking about what my career would look like. And again, that just compounded in middle school where I secured that scholarship in 8th grade and then went on into high school. And then as an early, in college, and then as an early professional, it just continued to carry through. And that doesn't necessarily mean that anything is wrong in how our parents raised us. Again, because I know my parents were doing what was my parents and my grandparents. They wanted me to have a good life. They weren't doing anything wrong. It just means you've been living in a certain way for such a long time that someone else defined for you, that it might be time for you to just figure out what you desire, how you want to work and live, and figure out, it might be the same way as you were raised to believe, but it might not be. For me, it definitely wasn't. And honestly, I think this is the kind of thing, I continue to look at in my own life, and the work that I will continue to share, on this 100 days and beyond, and the services that I create and the products that I create, because I know for a fact that we can have lives that we desire. We can do good work. We can do meaningful work. We can do impactful work while still prioritizing our health and our wellness. I know it's possible because I'm living it. Now, things ain't perfect. Things are not perfect. Things will never be perfect. Actually, perfect is not the goal for me. There's still things that I have difficulties with. There's things that I still struggle through. However, when my health and my wellness being my priority, and it's God, my health and my wellness, and then just knowing that what I am building for myself is going to allow me that level of freedom and liberation while still doing good, meaningful work. It makes me feel good to wake up to that vision every single morning. And I want, for the woman, for you who envision the same things, I want you to know that it definitely is possible, but it does require you to prioritize yourself in a real way, not in a performative way, but in a real way. So that's where I'll leave you today. If you've missed any of the other conversations on this 100-day journey, I've linked them down in the playlist below in the description box. If anything resonated with you in this video, as always, please let me know down in the comments. Give this video a like, do all of the things. If you have not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Alexa, stop alarm. Look at Alexa. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.